All right, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and we're about to go live on Instagram. All right, lovely. Looks like we're live everywhere. We're live. Woo!
Yeah, perfect day for today's topic.
Yes. So today's topic is all about anger, the energy of anger, what's it about, what to do with it, how to use it productively. Sometimes that could be destructively.
Yeah. Productive, destructive, close cousins.
I think you can be productive and destructive as long as you're conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have all kinds of thoughts about anger, but you can start us off.
All right. Well, with regards to any emotion, the biggest lie that we have been conditioned to think as a human species, at least in the civilized cultures, is that every feeling that you have is yours, and hence you have to do something about that feeling. You have to figure out why you're feeling that, or what to do about that, how to solve that emotion that you're experiencing. And I just want to start off today's live by first saying that is absolutely 1000% a lie. 1000% a lie. Every feeling that you feel, for the people that are listening and anybody who might listen to this later in the future, every feeling that you feel is not necessarily yours. The key to learning how to work with your emotions is, and this is going to be the big secret. If you can figure out how to do this, you are going to become the master of your emotions. And you're going to learn how to work with other people and their emotions too. So this is a secret. It's a
Yeah.
secret. Tell everyone. The big secret is you have to learn how to distinguish the difference between your emotion versus somebody else's emotion. What most of us are not educated to know is that we are designed, this human body has a certain design where we have certain spiritual features that are built into our design. Most spiritual people know about chakras. We're born with chakras. Some people know about an aura. We're born with an aura. Every human has one. Another mechanical, spiritual functionality that we have built in our system is called the clairsentient radar. Now, that resides in your second chakra. And it's this little radar system that's always scanning your environment. Yeah, like on those movies with the submarine. Yeah, just always scanning the vibe, scanning your environment and it's actually a safety mechanism. It's a survival mechanism. It's always scanning for your environment to see if it's safe, if the sensations and feelings of those around you are safe feelings. It's going to keep your body in balance and alive. And so this clairsentient radar is always scanning. And this is where we have people whose clairsentient radars are so finely tuned, that are so listening to everything, that then they call themselves empaths. And unfortunately, we've turned empath into a bad word where that's a negative thing. And it actually isn't a negative thing if you can learn how your clairsentient radar works. And the biggest thing is to learn how to distinguish if what you are feeling through your clairsentient radar, because that radar picks up other people's feelings and sensations, and then you bring that into your second chakra to feel it so that you can go, oh, does that feel good on my body? Do I like that feeling, or do I need to run because a big woolly mammoth is about to get me, or a big scary person is about to attack me, or can I stay in this environment? So it's this natural built-in system that we have. Most are using it incorrectly. And so if you can start to recognize that all of us have this clairsentient capability, we're always doing it all the time. Some people call it their gut feeling, or, I'm just feeling into myself or tuning into myself. It is happening all the time. And if you can start to recognize when you're picking something up from your environment versus I'm picking up a feeling from within myself and feeling my own feeling. And if you can start to distinguish the two, then this is where the magic happens, because here's the key of what to do about the key to life of emotions is if it's not your emotion, you just let it go. You just let it go. If it's not your feeling, if you picked it up through that clairsentient radar and it's not yours, you just use that as information. Oh, interesting. That's how that person is feeling, or my environment is safe, or it's not safe. I'm going to take action on that. And then you just let it go. You don't have to go to therapy to figure out why you're feeling it. You don't have to talk to somebody ad nauseum to understand why you're feeling it. You don't have to solve the emotional thing that you're experiencing. It's not a problem of yours to fix because it's not your energy. The biggest thing that if everyone could just learn in life is that you only have control over yourself, and this also goes with energies. You only have control of your own energy. And so when somebody else's energy stays in your system for too long, you will not have control over that, and hence you will feel out of control. And so this is my lead in to anger, because the first thing that you want to acknowledge if you are feeling angry and it's bubbling up and it's starting to rise, for some people, hotheads like me, it hits you fast.
That's good.
Warrior princess. But even in that moment, my first consideration is this mine? Is this not mine? To whatever degree it's not mine, let that go, either down a grounding cord, out the top of my head, if it kicked on my Kundalini, for those of you that know what Kundalini energy is, or for those students who are listening, put that into a rose, explode it. The portion of the anger that my body is feeling in that moment of hot-headedness that's not mine, if I attempt to act on it, it will always go south. It will be an experience where afterwards I will feel shame and guilt and regret. And I wish I didn't say that. I wish I didn't do that. That's just such a mess. And then now I can't own what I did because it wasn't even my energy that had me act in that way. So then I can't own it. So then I can't reconcile. I can't make amends with the person that I just bit their heads off.
Yes.
Right? But if in that moment that the anger rises, I can release what's not mine. And if all that's left is mine, which this might take some people years to figure out. I mean, this was like a good solid 10-year journey for me to learn about anger and how to work with anger and how to get to a point where most of the time I'm not perfect. I'm going to say I'm going to give myself an 85%. Most of the time when I'm angry, I'm able to manage it pretty quickly, and I'm able to respond with my anger versus react.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want to put forth is that when it is your anger, when it is purely your anger, like you are 100% pissed off and it is your anger, you want to use that as information, letting you know that your body's integrity system, your body's survival system, all right? We are first and foremost designed to survive. That is our very first operative, is to survive. And then the next one is to propagate the species.
Yeah.
And then after that is to have great sex. Got to go up through the chakras, right?
By the time you're 60, you can start to relax because you have to raise the kids.
All the things, right? And so, where was I? And so when that body integrity system fires certain alarms, one of those alarms is anger. And that anger siren tells the body, the user, the soul who operates the body, a boundary has been crossed, mayday, mayday, boundary has been crossed. You need to seal up your border, whether that's seal up your aura, protect yourself better, use your words, walk away from a conversation, yell back, whatever it means. A boundary has been crossed. And ideally, if you're conscious and in your body and recognizing, oh, this is my anger is manageable, it doesn't turn into out of control rage, I can work with this, then you have enough consciousness to choose, well, what's the best way to work with this situation right now to seal up my boundary first and foremost.
Yeah, I like that. I have thoughts kind of in two categories. Like, anger is very contagious. You know, right now our currency that everyone is after is our attention. You know, how do we get, you know, everyone that's marketing something, whether it's a political party or a thing they're selling, they want to get your attention. You get your attention, get your attention. And anger and fear are like the big ones that like people just tune right into that. Like, why do you think it's so contagious? Like, because there's so many other emotions that don't seem to be you know, like, oh man, I'm just feeling so empathetic today. I'm feeling so compassionate and generous. But like, anger seems to be like just cocaine for people. Like, we just love it. You know, And I'm wondering if there's people that if there's a spectrum of people that, like, I definitely run hot. I am not at risk of like not even knowing what my boundary is, because I never get, you know, like, I'm on this end where I'm going to blow a gasket and then be like, oh, that was probably not the best thing. But then there's people that never get angry, never speak up for themselves, then get an ulcer, or when they're like 60, go, I'm so mad at everyone in my life for everything. You know, those people that leave their partner like one day after 20 years. So like, one, what do you think causes people to be more or less on those two sides of like anger? What's that? Or all the anger is sticking to them all the time? Because right now it almost seems like there's this like anger force out there. It's like this monster flying around and you know, getting people, and it's sticking to people everywhere. And it seems like the more you eat it, the more you want it, you know, like, because there seems like there's this other element to anger, almost like this otherness, like it's like this entity itself. So that's one zone. And then I want to get to like, lately I'm annoyed with the idea of boundaries. Like, oh, it's the solution to everything is to set a boundary. Yay, boundaries, perfect. You know, and like, I've often find myself in these spaces between when boundaries don't work, but you're not going to leave a relationship, but you're like, ooh. So we can get to that. But I guess my first question is kind of like why are some people more more susceptible to loving that drug? You know, the salties. And then some people are like, the people that never get angry, which I don't agree with, but did that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Well, to answer the question, especially because it is very prevalent right now, anger is a hot commodity, and I always say drama is like candy for the brain, right? And anger and drama, they're close cousins to each other. And you know, whenever I look at this, we have to remember that humans, we are pack animals.
Yeah.
Although we do like to identify as I am an individual, I am autonomous, and I am on my own. And yes, on a soul level, as the being part of our humanness, we are ideally, the goal is to have your autonomy, to have your energetic sovereignty, to know who you are, to know your truth, and to follow your path. And that is the spiritual goal. And then how do you blend that with a physical body, our caveman and cavewoman parts of ourselves, the animal part of us that are actually pack animals. We are designed to be pack animals. I mean, very few people can really survive in this world on their own, right? I mean, I need the person to kill the cow and to put it in the grocery store for me. Right? We are designed
I
to
need you to raise the carrot to chop up.
to grow that carrot and to pluck it, and then Three can cook it. She
Yeah, I can cook it, right?
Yeah, and so we are pack animals, and what I always find so fascinating about the human species, especially when I look at us more in the animal form, is that we are the only species that follows the lowest common denominator.
Oh yeah. Oh, look at what that guy's doing. Let's all do it.
Ouch. Every other species of pack animals out there, they follow the highest common denominator. There's a leader.
Why are we so dumb?
And it has to do with our frontal lobes. We have these frontal lobes, these very thinking, associative minds that we are still very adolescent users of, and we're still learning how to use our brains. What is it like? We only actually use 10% of our brains.
I don't even know if we use that much. Like, I think that's generous.
Oh, I thought it was like somewhere like 10 or 12%, but we don't use that. I mean, that's like a failing grade. we're we're not using our brains well. And because most of us don't understand that our brains are associative, they're always associating to past experiences to attempt to try to calculate what's going to happen in the future. The simplest way I can say that is our brains are never in present time. Our brains are either in the past or in the future. The actual brain is never, ever, ever in present time. Okay, so the brain does not help you be present. So very thinking mind. Yeah, people who are thinking a lot are either in the past or in the future. They're never very much in the present. And because we're not taught how to own our brains, instead of letting our brains own us, we are a culture where if you have high intelligence, if you have multiple letters after your name, that is a sign of accomplishment and a sign that we are supposed to follow you and not those without letters after their names. And hence, we are a very thinking society that, in other words, is never in present time. We're never present, right? And because of that, our brains can play tricks on us. Our brains can project into a fantasy future of doom and gloom or rainbows and unicorns, or our brains are always stuck in processing what happened in the past and trying to project that onto our futures. And so it just creates a really big mess. We're not using our brains well.
Yeah.
Fully or completely. And so it gets us into trouble. And so hence we tend to follow the lowest common denominator because we like to feed our brains that candy and anger, drama, all of those contagious vibrations. Fear that can spread like wildfire if you're not being conscious of how to use your brain and also how to use your second chakra radar and how to actually use your emotions. Then we have the situation that we have right now where anger is running rampant. It is a fuel that is burning a lot of things up right now.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everything you turn on, listen to is just like everyone's angry.
Yeah. And then with regards to people who are quick to anger and comfortable expressing it, and then those who are not comfortable expressing it, I was one of those people who grew up terrified of anger. I had a very aggressive, angry, unkind father, and I never, ever, ever wanted to grow up to be like him. Just not be like him. Do not hurt other people. Be nice, be nice, be nice at all expense, even at your own peril. And so I was terrified of anger. And what happens with a person who is deeming anger as a negative because they're uneducated, I was uneducated about the difference between my anger and other people's anger. And Later, as an adult psychic, I started to recognize, a lot of the anger that was running through my dad's and the reason why it was so out of control is because it wasn't even his anger.
Mm.
And it was passed down through his dad and, him getting abused by his parents and, that got passed down. And so, if you will, those of us who are afraid of anger will attempt to put a cap on it. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. Don't be.
Don't be mad. Don't get mad.
And I hear this in other people, and I remember myself being this ticking time bomb. With the eye twitch.
Mhm.
And God help the poor soul that was the one that broke the camel's back,
Yeah.
that got the rage Miwa monster. Because all the rage would come out and it was intense. I lost friendships. There's still people that I am still embarrassed to talk to because of the way I was, in my teen years and early 20s with just these explosions. And it would, like, once a year, I would just freak out, lose a friend, and put my tail between my legs. And
it's my anger.
I would just go to the other side.
It's filled up and it's got to blow. So.
Yeah. And I totally have a lot of compassion for people like that, because I do get that anger has not been role modeled well in our culture. We're not educated on how to actually use it. And so if you have a weapon that can really hurt people and you don't know how to use it, probably the most kindest thing to do is to just try not to use it. I get it. Yeah. Right. But then the problem is that it will explode, because the body integrity system will start to get louder and louder and louder, because you're not protecting your boundaries. You're not honoring yourself, and your body system is designed to succeed, and it will tell you, and it will blow when something needs to get fixed, and fixed fast.
Yeah.
And so those people who are afraid of anger, come take some classes. That's a great next step. But also, if that's not in your wheelhouse, I would definitely recommend maybe starting to journal about anger and starting to see if you can start to shift your mindset and see how maybe sometimes when you have gotten angry, some good things might have come out of that. Like you learned something about yourself, or you shifted a relationship, or you did actually set a boundary. Again, ideally, for those people who are afraid of anger, one of the first steps is to learn what's mine and what's not mine. Because I wouldn't have been a ticking time bomb if I would have been less of a ticking time bomb if I had known to release the anger that was not mine.
Yeah.
And the anger of mine would be controllable up to a point. Up to a point. The body system will always communicate to you in the form of like a little feather. Hey, are you listening?
Yeah.
You listening? And then it'll be a little brick in the face. Are you listening? Nope. So then it's the Mack truck. And then that's when you have to listen. And that's usually in that moment when you just explode. So then the other end of the spectrum are people who maybe grew up in an environment where anger was just a normal thing. I know that there's some cultures, a lot of the Latin cultures, just having big emotions and lots of drama is actually very normal. And so just, being a hothead and yelling at people is kind of like foreplay. It's like, if you don't yell back, they feel like you don't love them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're angry because they're not loved. And that's one of the things that I've learned is when I'm dealing with an angry person, I'm able to gauge out, do they need me to yell back at them because then they'll know I love them? Or do they actually need me to disengage and walk away till they can cool down? Yeah. And sometimes they absolutely need me to like get angry with them and like meet them and, and then we're making love afterwards, either through our words and our relationship or actual sex, right? But for some people, it is foreplay because they grew up in an environment where it is a sign of love. That is how they were conditioned to communicate, is through anger. and that provides some level of validation. Now, I would also say with a lot of those people too, especially when it gets to the point where they are saying things that they regret, or they are destroying relationships that they would rather not destroy. Again, my very first teaching would be, is that your anger? Is it not your anger?
Right. And then if it is your anger, what do you do with that? You know, because like I get pissed easily. I think I'm better, but like it's a, you know, on big, and sometimes it's not a big deal. Like the people, the way that people drive in the parking lot of my kiddo's middle school makes me crazy. There's no like traffic director, which sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna volunteer and do this just to teach them. Yeah, just to teach these people right from wrong, because right now they're all doing wrong. Good. But I get paid, like I drop, my kid gets out, and then I will like say out loud in the car, I'm like, dude, would you guys think this through? Like, this is not how we do this. And I'm like mad, and then it goes away. So it's not a big deal. But, you know, when you do have that like anger that's just like running through your veins and your boundaries not working, you know, like how do you, I mean, I guess we'll talk about boundaries in a second.
Yeah.
But how, you know, when, you know, because anger can feel great, it can feel powerful, and then it can feel like, oh yuck, I want it to stop, but it's not stopping.
Yeah, you know, I remember it was probably like 15 years ago. I used to do a lot of channeling. I just started it back up again recently, but I used to do a lot of channeling, and I'd pick various entities. And I remember one time being like, I'm going to channel Pele, just, you know, goddess Pele, goddess of anger, volcano.
Yeah.
Let's just mess around and find out and see how this goes. Me, and this was still at a time where I was still like, you know, anger. I don't know about anger, you know, but why not? Let's bring this anger entity into my body and see how it goes. And she came in, and just that fiery, hot anger, I immediately went into an intense, it was like a hot flash. It was a hot flash, just huge hot flash, heat burning up where I was like feeling like my skin was burning, and then started sweating. And it was so uncomfortable. But then she like calmed it down, and she said, that's what you have to do with your anger. You have to let it burn, and you have to let it flow. And it kind of just was like this burning that just flew like up and out the top of my head, like a big volcano exploding.
Yeah.
And that's what she taught me in that very first moment, was that you have to let that anger, and usually anger will kick on your Kundalini energy, and Kundalini energy runs up along the spine. And ideally, you want that to run out the top of your head so that you don't go crazy. And when anger and Kundalini is blended together, it can be an amazing healing force that just shoots right out the top of your head. So usually, especially if it's your anger, it will get uncomfortable if you're not letting it run. It's designed to run up and out. And this is why I love some of these colloquialisms, because they're very psychic. You're a hothead.
Or blow your top.
I'm going to blow my top. So psychic. Because if you don't blow your top, you will be a hothead, and it'll just kind of fry the brain. And that's where, you know, it gets super uncomfortable. And so if I do find myself in that level of like, wow, I am really like feeling the anger, I don't really get to that point too often. But when I do, it's like, wow, okay, you know, all right, let's let this run up and out. And usually all I need is like maybe 30 seconds of like, I'm not going to say anything for a minute to whoever it is that's enraging me, to just let that come up and out, to where then all of a sudden it's like the heat kind of dissipates a little bit. Maybe I do start to sweat a little, but then, you know, the heat dissipates, if you will, the hot-headedness dissipates. And then I'm able to get a read on the situation, and I'm not reacting from anger. I'm able to use other faculties than just anger in that moment. Okay, does this person need me to use the F word at them? Do they need me to, you know, hug them? What do they need so that I can get to a place in this conversation where boundaries can be communicated, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's my boundary of like, I'm just walking away right now.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm out.
Well, that's good. So that kind of brings me to the boundaries thing, you know, the cure all to everything, sarcasm, or I guess just where I'm at right now. Like, you know, let's say you're mad at a political situation or global warming, just for example.
This is all theoretical.
Or, you know, global pollution, to toxic waste, toxins in our food, stuff that's like really big on, you know, or like maybe family members, or, you know, situations with people you really love where you're like, it's just not, every time I try and set a boundary, it continues to not work. And there's kind of this point where you're like, this is sort of no longer worth my time and energy to try and uphold this boundary. And it's not like they're punching me in the face. And so I think I'm just going to take it. But then that's like, oh, that doesn't feel good either. But like, I'm not going to blow up the situation because my boundary is getting crossed. And like, there's this little in between place where you're like, a boundary either isn't possible. I alone can't fix plastic in the ocean. I can't. I'm setting a boundary. That's nice. Or like, oh, you know, this is a relationship that I want to protect and uphold, and it's complicated, and the boundary continues to not work. So I'm in this place of like, I either remove myself, go just just don't think about the ocean anymore. Beep, gone. Or suck it up, or like, forget it, I'll never see you again. You know, okay, you know, like that place where you're like, I have to just let this slide off my back. And if you're someone like me who is quick, you know, I'm on the spicy end. I'm more spicy than sweet. This is not like, I like candy
so not
so much. I like candy so much to cool it off. But
that's not how I experience you three. I mean, you're like, you're very sweet.
Yeah, I know. You've seen me get all worked up, all fried.
Yeah, but and I will say you communicate it very well in those moments. I mean, I can tell that you've worked hard to try to learn how to communicate in a way that attempts to maintain relationship when you're upset.
Yeah, I'm way better. I mean, my joke, I used to have, like, in my early years, like you, I mean, I remember once with a roommate, we're still close and friends. I remember turning a table over in a fight. And I'm like, I can't, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy talk. That's nonsense. But, you know, and I used to have that joke years ago that I haven't done. I used, like, every 18 months, I would have some meltdown with some random person. And it's usually like in a parking lot or like something where I'm like flipping them off.
An old lady.
One lady started backing up and trying to run me and my kids over. I was like, boom, boom on her window. I'm like, hey. And, you know, but so like, usually people don't mess with me, you know, because I kind of have like a, hey, no. But there are times where I'm in that in-between space of like, yeah, that's not going to work, or it's going to work 10 years from now, you know, where you're like, the boundary's not working. And it's not bad enough to like end the relationship. I'm never gonna quit. And that spot is hard for me, you know, where you're like, you know, it makes me more mad when you know you can't solve it.
Yeah. I think where I want to start with my response is that a lot of people see boundaries as a push. I have to push on you and you have to behave differently. You have to do something different. And oftentimes in that push, you're actually breaking your own boundary by pushing on the other person, because you have to kind of come out of your space to push on them, to control them. Yeah, to control them or get them to behave a different way or get them to do something different, right?
Yeah.
And whereas a boundary, you want to start to think of it as more of an internal vibration or even an internal mindset. Like, what is it that I need to have balance or peace or equanimity in my own space? And what is it? Are there any actions that I actually need to take to get there?
Mhm.
So, of course, like the first place I go to with is parenting,
Oh, I
because
was gonna say, yeah, I can bring up some real good ones. No one pushes your button like your kid. Mhm. They know when you're weak too. They know when you're weak.
they smell fear.
I mean, you could be on the ground and they're like, perfect time to kick you in the ribs.
And I mean, so there's a difference between, telling a kid what to do, like you need to sit down, versus I'm going to start reading this book once everybody's sitting down, right? And so it's having that ability to say what you're going to do instead of telling other people what they need to do. And I get that it doesn't always work. Now with my kids, they're most of the time I win.
You're still bigger. That's not for long.
I know, right? But with adults, it can be difficult. And also when you're like, I noticed that Heidi made a comment that, I get very angry and I feel like I need to protect myself and others from injustice, or
Yeah.
when, people are being abused, especially, elderly or children or animals, and totally get that, right? And so where there
You can't always like, you're like, excuse me, I'm setting a boundary. Please stop abusing children all over the planet. Oh, no one's listening to my boundary. I can't alone hold that boundary, or enforce it.
yeah.
But I think it puts you off. But
No, that's
those boundaries where you can't change the negative behavior.
you can't, yeah, like I alone can't change all the plastics in the planet, or I
Or
alone,
create a consequence that then changes the behavior.
yeah, exactly. And those are the ones where, again, there is a boundary being crossed, but you have to recognize that it's your own inner sovereignty that's being crossed, right? So with regards to like the environment and plastics, there are moments where I'm like, man, I just, that's so frustrating that people aren't getting it, right?
Yeah.
And then I have to look at myself. Where am I leaving my space, and where am I making everybody else the problem, or making big corporations problem? Yes, they are a big part of the problem,
Right. No,
right?
all the things are a problem, but when your boundaries aren't going to do much.
Yeah. And so then I do the best I can, right? Okay, well, we're going to try to eliminate plastics from our house. We're going to, do the best we can to use less, right? So that's where I did my best to take action to try to shore up that problem that's happening out there in the world. And that's my way of shoring up my boundary of, okay, well, I'm just going to do the best I can with the resources I have to keep things healthy for me and my family. I'm just going to do the best I can here. And wherever the rest of the world isn't doing amazing, that's where at least I have some psychic skills, and I can start to give healings to the planet and start giving healings to various corporations. And that provides me with a sense of, oh, I'm doing something. I'm trying to do something.
Yeah. I've been toying with this idea of like providing kind of like a combo pack through our newsletter or something of like, here's a spiritual thing to do towards this big crazy problem that you can't probably solve yourself. And then here's a physical thing to do, because you got to at least do your part, whether that's speaking up or writing a letter or blah, blah, blah. And so then there's both. You can meditate, an anger meditation, in addition to, still do something. Don't just check out,
Yeah. Yeah, and I liken it to, we are made up of how many bazillion cells in our body, and one cell getting cancer or getting sick can create a problem.
Yeah.
right? And so every cell matters in our body system, just like every person on this planet system matters. And if you can do your part, which is being as bright as possible and trying to have your own inner sovereignty and peace, and then doing what you can,
Yeah.
given the way our world is, then I do see if more people did that, then the other cells that are maybe darkened, right, will start to either get flushed out through the immune system, through the lymph, or they'll start to shift and change, right?
Yeah.
Because again, just like our cells in the body, we kind of match. We are pack animals, and we will start to match certain vibrations.
Right.
So with situations like that, like I just try to do the best I can. So for example, Heidi's question, if I see a child who, maybe the parent like yanks them a little bit too hard in public, I have the choice of throwing energy daggers at that parent, which is just going to fuel more out of control anger in that parent's space.
Yeah.
Or I can ground myself and try to ground the environment, and maybe even give a little spirit to spirit hello to that child. Hey, it's going to be all right,
Yeah.
and try to diffuse the energy of that situation in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. Usually when I get really triggered by that, it's because I have some childhood memory that's transposing onto that situation. And usually I have to kind of slow my roll and calm my trigger first.
Right.
Right. And maybe give my little 3-year-old self a healing.
Yeah.
To then be able to approach that situation as an adult in present time with consciousness.
Yeah.
Because if I womp the parent energetically, they're probably going to take that energy and womp their kid.
Right.
And how often do you see that in public?
Well, because now you've humiliated them.
Mm-hmm.
And then humiliation is another, like, first comes humiliation and shame, and then comes like absolute rage. I mean, the people that do, just that, if they've been humiliated, that's like, oh, everyone take cover.
Yeah. And again, what is that humiliation? They let that judgment into their space. They let that boundary be crossed.
Yeah. And they want to regain their own dignity back.
Yeah. And, I've had this projected onto me lots of times as the founder of Boulder Psychic Institute. Oh, Miwa, you're supposed to be perfect. You're never supposed to get angry. You're supposed to approach every conversation perfectly and cleanly and never cause a mess, and, never be nervous about approaching a conversation. And I have those projections placed on me all the time. And I used to be very susceptible to that when students or staff would come to me like, you got angry, and oh no, I did, and nowadays it's like, yeah, so what, you put that judgment on me. I'm human. I still get to have boundaries. I still get to, manage my universe in my own way. And as a matter of fact, if I let you in with that judgment, I'm going to be even more angry because I'm letting a boundary get crossed. Right.
Yeah.
And, recently, I've just had people, it doesn't happen too often, but when it does, and when it has recently, they're always shocked that I can't be humiliated about being the director of Boulder Psychic Institute and getting angry with someone. Hey, you didn't do your job, Hey, you don't get to talk to me that way. Hey, you don't get to speak to my staff in that way.
Yeah. Did you see Nick's question? What to do with deep-seated anger brought on by my father and mother? Maybe part of it is their energy, but the rest is my stifled reaction to threats to my body, mind, emotional integrity still stuffed inside. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And that's kind of what I was saying too, of like, the time to set a boundary with his parents is long gone. So, because he was a kid, probably a little kid, couldn't do it. And it's like, what?
Right. And you can't change the energy of the past, or you can't change what happened in the past, but you can definitely change the energy of it. So first step, Nick, would be to release on a daily basis, probably for like the next solid year, all of your mother and father's anger that you're storing in your body, that's in your cells, in your organs, in your psyche anywhere to start to release that. From there, then what you will want to consider doing is talking to that little child self that was abused or had some level of infraction done onto them as a child, where you really can't advocate for yourself. It's tough to be a child. And to let that child know, hey, we're not in this situation any longer. This will never, ever, ever happen to you again, right? I will make sure that we are safe.
Yeah.
I'm not in that environment where I can't advocate for myself, where it is a relationship where I don't have control over my autonomy and my body. I mean, it is hard to be a child. I will say probably one of the most healing things that I ever did was when I think it was like 32. I decided, well, it's been about 16 years since I spoke to my father, since he cut me off and decided to stop talking to me. And so I reached out to him and set up like a little meeting with him. And oh my goodness, I was terrified, just terrified to see him. Like, oh my God. Like the little girl in me was like, oh my goodness, like, what if he hurts me? What if he, da, 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 all these like mental projections into the past, into the future. And when I saw him in present time as an old man, not agile, definitely I could have taken him down in my adult body. Like I was like, oh, I could take him. That was the most healing things that could have ever happened to me.
It wasn't so huge in your mind anymore.
It was like, oh, this man will never hurt me again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is where people who have gone no contact with their family, I oftentimes question that a little bit, because I get that you need space sometimes, but if you haven't seen them in a long time, for me, it was 16 years, you don't get to update to present time to see like, oh, this is a very, very different, my body will forever be safe in this lifetime from that man. And I tried to convince my brother to do it. He was visiting.
I love it. Go see Dad. I just did.
Yeah. Well, we were having a conversation over the holidays, over Thanksgiving, and he was like, I'm still terrified of the man. I was like, you got to go see him. You have to see him physically. He said, absolutely not. I will not do it. I'm like, then you're going to be afraid for the rest of your life.
Do you think that same method could work? Like I've noticed I'm not letting go of anger at an entire institution of the religion I grew up in, and just seeing I am smart enough to understand. I know there's little nice Christian church ladies and Christian churches, and they do nice things, and it's fine and great. But as a whole, the travesties that have been perpetrated and continue to be, and as I peel back the layers, which our next pop-up is spiritual trauma, I find that like I'm often thinking about it, and just like how this is so messed up. What the institution have done, with women, with the earth, with all of it, and I'm like, why am I so angry at this? Like, I'm not part of it. I left. I have my own new thing. I rekindled my own relationship with God, but like it's like I want to like pull up to, and I know that all the churches aren't the same, but it's like I want to pull up to this one building that represents this anger and just give it a piece of my mind and be like, and then there was the Spanish Inquisition, and then there was, and it's like, okay, I'm not where this is so unproductive, like I'm enough. Like I get it. Why do I keep chewing on it? So when it's not a person, it's like a whole like institution. Some people are mad at the medical institution. Some people are mad at the government, just like you can't even wrap your arms around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and the problem with these institutions that they are dinosaurs, and they're definitely not in present time, and so that's why we're having such difficulty with these institutions because they've become just so unwieldy.
Right.
And so I do see, that perspective. When you found your peace with something, for example, in your case, I'm not even a part of this religion. I have rekindled my relationship with God, and it still kind of keeps coming back.
Right.
That's where you want to look for entities.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the biggest games on the planet is the atheist game that there's no such thing as spirits or entities or God or energy. And we have a good portion of the planet that is in that paradigm. And if you are not privy to energies or entities that are floating around here on the physical plane, in some religions they call it bardo, and others they call it purgatory. They're here, they're everywhere. And I know I'm sounding totally cuckoo right now, but if you don't recognize that they're there, that's when it's like, why does this keep coming back? Why does this keep coming back? I thought I had my peace with it. I thought I've created my distance from it. Why does it keep coming back? That's where then you do want to start to develop your psychic abilities to be able to see spirits, entities, so that you can also safeguard yourself from them coming in and fueling old memories that maybe you've discharged, but they can totally fuel it and recharge it again. So in your case, whenever I experience or pass a church or pass a certain institution, I just it spikes up. It's, well, you just might have had a little flyby entity come in and fuel the fire a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is where I do see a lot of those entities really having a heyday with social media and the news outlet right now. I mean, they are just coming in and controlling a lot of humans who are unconscious to them even existing. And I'm not trying to create fear by saying that. It's just that we have these beings that are stuck here on Earth, on the earthly plane. It's a whole thing. And if you're not aware of them, they can get stuck to you and help fuel things that may not be so pleasant in your body and in your experience.
Yeah. And there's you turn on a podcast, you turn on the news, you pick up your phone, and there's 50 triggers coming at you 100 miles an hour that you have to be like, okay, I'm gonna listen to the news, but I'm gonna also try and be over here. And not let it get so into me. But that's easier said than done.
I mean, we are living in a fascinating time where information is so accessible, and we have not evolved enough to be able to manage the degree of information that we have thrown at us on a second by second basis.
Yeah, and all of it designed to grab your attention with fear, anger, rage. Right.
Yeah. Let's see, Linda. When I experience anger in myself or others, it is more often not anger but fear. Anger is okay to express. Fear is not.
Yeah, it's like if you're angry, you look like powerful versus I'm weak and afraid. I think that's the
yeah, and that is the social conditioning that fear or being sensitive or sadness or being upset is weak versus anger being strong. And so, yeah, that's definitely a social conditioning that has those who are more apt to express anger express that instead of what might be right underneath that anger, which is sometimes sadness. Hey, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, to come back to that question that you have three, like with regards to family, where you're trying to get them to do something or trying to get
not working
and the boundaries aren't working. And I do see that at some point, there is this well, I'm in this group agreement. I am a pack animal. I am part of this family or this group dynamic. And even if those boundaries are being, I mean, I guess at some point you just have to assess what are the boundaries that are so hurtful to your system that you do have to really get firm about versus ones where it's like, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's just more of an annoyance.
Right. The annoyance stuff, the one when you kind of are walking, I think if you have awareness, or at least this works better for me, if I know I'm walking into a situation where I'm gonna have to take it a little bit, where I'm gonna have to swallow some things, there's gonna be things that I'm like, oh, here we go with that again. Great. Okay. I have been trying this trick of like, I get a reward afterwards. Like I get a treat. And if I'm really on top of my game, I schedule the treat ahead of time, like a massage or like just something there. I'm like, I get a prize.
Yeah.
But that's not really, I'm talking about like blatant abuse. I'm talking about when you're just like,
yeah, those are more just like annoyances, like little niggly annoyances, you know what I mean? Versus like a boundary has been crossed and the anger has risen.
yeah.
Right. You know, there's certain things like, you know, if my family like spanked one of my kids, like I would blow my top and everything would stop and there would be something big that would really happen. Right. You know what I mean? But, you know, like if a family member says something a little bit like weird to my kids or, you know, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, and then maybe I'll have a conversation with my child about that later. Like, yeah, that was weird. We don't say that, or like that wasn't true, or, you know, I'll kind of come shore that up. But do you see how there's kind of there's a difference between some of those like more niggly annoyances than actual like real boundaries being crossed. Right?
Yeah. Right. And then there's like the late where it takes you a day or two to realize, oh, 8 different boundaries got crossed, but I was so busy in the moment or I couldn't quite see it. That's happened to me for my whole life where like 24 hours later, I'm like, wait.
You're not the only one. Yeah. And you know, what you do with that is you have to forgive yourself.
Oh, right. That you're not just on top of your game every second being like,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, I had some unconscious moments. I let that happen because you have to recognize that you are complicit in all of this. I mean, the biggest problem with religion and even neo-spiritual religions that are just rebranded as old religion, but they're new spiritual practices, is that there's very little education on taking responsibility for you being the creator of your life and your universe.
Right. It's all happening.
So in those moments, you were complicit. You know, you were unconscious and blipped out maybe in that degree, or you were very busy, right? Or you were playing into a certain role and you chose that role. And so ultimately you do have to look back on those moments and go, well, you know, I played a part in that. And so instead of getting angry with them, I'm actually a little bit upset with myself for letting myself play that role or letting myself get unconscious. I crossed my own boundary.
Yeah.
I have to forgive myself. And how can I shore myself up differently maybe next time?
Right. That reminds me one time I will do this, and I think I've said this before, like I'll use, you know, humor is the ultimate like social, it can smooth the situation over, it can stop the drama, you know, it can pivot everybody. It's a very good tool. You can also hide behind humor. You can, you know, it's a shield, and which is good and bad because it's also like, oh, I'm gonna hide, I'm gonna start my set, you know, it's just start being funny to make it stop, you know. But 1,000 years ago when Andrew and I were first getting together, he's Jewish. And at the time I was a practicing Christian. And this cracks both of us up that this was like the biggest deal to everyone around. Like so many people were just like, oh my gosh, how are you guys going to live your life? What about your kids? And we were just like, what? Like, I'm picking out cake. That's like, everything's fine. And it was like never an issue in our life. But I had this cousin, she just like was like really drilling in. And I launched into this set and didn't ever, say anything to her of like, hey, you're out of line. And then my mom interested calls me out and was like, oh, well, you were back there entertaining the troops, but you didn't stick up for yourself. You didn't, that's going to keep happening to you unless you create a party line when people hit you with that. And she kind of taught me to put up a polite stop sign. So when people would say that, because everyone would say the same thing, how's that going to work? How's your marriage going to work? And then my mom helped me script this just fine, which is like stop sign, but like we're done here. and what this kills me, because like if only they would know where our marriage would go. Like that was so vanilla. For like now I'm queer, we're polyamorous, and I'm like, I wish. Look at me now.
I mean, how is that gonna work?
But like,
hold my beer.
Yeah. I think I was on a tangent just now, but what we're talking about boundaries of like, it can be so hard in the moment to deal with a boundary when it comes up. You're just like, oh, I'm being attacked. I don't know. I can't get angry, so I'll be funny.
Well, and all of those social rules of engagement really make it difficult for us as humans and pack animals to maintain our sovereignty and to have our boundaries.
Yeah.
Especially for women, right? You have to be nice.
You want to smooth the situation. Like I will.
You're so rude to me.
Yeah. Right.
Like in the Asian culture, it's like perfectly fine to call somebody fat. Like oh, you're fat.
I know. When we were in China, I was like, I did that like 12 times. Like, oh.
Yeah, and you're just supposed to take it and smile as a woman. Yeah.
We had this guide, and she would just say stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, Americans don't say that.
Yeah, and so then you watch like these little like ticking time bombs too in those cultures where it's like, oh, but yeah. So maybe we should do a whole new live on social rules of engagement.
Oh, I love breaking those rules now. But if you can break them subtly, that's the best.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at time.
And for those of you who would like to come do some energy work with us, we are running a free pop-up next Friday at 11 Mountain Time called Healing Spiritual Trauma, Recovering from Religious Conditioning and Toxic Spirituality. Mm-hmm. So if you were in a religion or you had a spiritual teacher or you were in a cult and you would like to heal from that, that's what that whole hour and a half is going to be all about. And it's for free. And the best way to find out about that is to be on our newsletter, because we don't put those pop-ups on the website. We just advertise them because they pop up, and that's the easiest way to advertise them. So get on our newsletter.
Get on the newsletter, everybody. Yay. Well, right. I should go get pissed. No, I'm just kidding.
In the UK, that means drunk.
Right. Both sound fine, but I'm trying to be good.
It is Friday.
It's a full-time job. All right.
We're going to end it. Bye, everyone.